everybody, Lisa Romano here, the Breakthrough Life Coach, and I wanted to say something to trauma survivors, people who have come from trauma backgrounds and who are, struggling to get through a day. It's really important that we recognize that we are wired for survival and not thriving, and we must overcome this. We absolutely must, and the only person that can ultimately have this happen for us is us. And for me understanding what happened and how my central nervous system and my autonomic response system, how I responded to trauma, how I responded to the information that was downloaded into my subconscious mind. This idea that we're unconscious, right? And we're running our ship based off of what has been downloaded in the subconscious mind, and we don't even realize it. And so what happens to us is that we have this idea that the world is unsafe, right? And we believe this, and we go out into work experiences, we go out into relationships, and we don't believe that the world is safe. And the younger we were when we were traumatized, the deeper our wounds. So the more powerless we felt when we were deciding, and our brain was being wired for being able to trust other people, when our brain was being wired for socialization, we were being traumatized. And so we were being taught that the world wasn't a safe place, right? And we were stunted emotionally, and that's not our fault. But what we don't realize is that we go out into the world feeling like prey. And we don't realize that this state of being, which is the result of what we experienced as children, is affecting every organ in our body. And it's interfering with the way we are processing information. So our perceptions of self have been altered by trauma, which is not our fault. And we now look at other people with the side eye, because we're waiting for them to attack, right? And so the information that we're receiving, that our brain is receiving, is most oftentimes, skewed by events from the past. Now, we should know that. We should know that what we learn to believe about the self, that's one thing. That's talking about unconscious programming. But also, the way our body is responding to these beliefs, that's the second thing. But also how we're viewing the environment and how we are interfacing with our environment. If we feel like tiny little birds, on planet Earth, then everybody and everything is going to be considered a threat. That will affect our gut. That will affect the energy that flows through our reproductive organs. That will affect our heart rhythm. That will affect our blood pressure. That affects our blood sugar. It's really, really important that those of us who have come, I'm just getting goosebumps, I think it's so important. We have to recognize how our past is controlling our future, and how what we've experienced is actually affecting our physiology and also affecting the way we show up, right? So, how well do we receive criticism at work? Do we receive criticism as constructive, as like, okay, that's something I need to work on? Or are we crushed? How well do we react when we find out that there's been a get-together and we haven't been invited? Do we go to, well, I don't always invite everybody to everything that I do. It's okay that I'm not invited. It's no big deal, Or are we crushed when we haven't been included, in some gathering or, some get-together? In terms of your self-worth, is your self-worth determined by something internal, or does your self-worth come by comparing yourselves to other people, comparing the way you look, comparing the size house you live in, comparing, how much money you make, comparing your shoes to other people, comparing, your lifestyle to other people? Where does your sense of value come from? Are you okay that you're single, Or do you judge yourself because you don't have a family, or you're not in the perfect relationship? Do you judge yourself because, your sister is married and you're not married? Where do your value judgments, where do you draw value judgments from? You set goals because you're following a bucket list, or you enjoy the process of creativity? Or do you set goals because you think that people who are successful are more worthy than people who don't achieve certain milestones in their life? Where I'm trying to go with this for trauma survivors is to understand that so many of us never felt like we were enough, or we felt like it was our fault that trauma was happening to us. So there's shame involved. We really have to look at that square in the nose, because we will go out into life and we will feel like the world's a scary place. We're going to feel like little birds. We're going to feel like at any minute the world is going to collapse, right? We are not going to be able to trust other people. The ability to trust other people is necessary for us to have loving relationships. So we're not going to be able to trust other people, right? We will almost expect to be let down because we have come from such traumatic backgrounds. And ultimately, it will either go into a state of reactivity where we're fighting against everybody, right? Because we've decided that's the only way to survive, or we'll isolate and we'll shut down, we'll dissociate, and we just won't get involved at all. Neither one is healthy. We're trying to look for the middle ground. So I think it's important that we recognize that not feeling good enough skews how we see other people, and it sets us up to believe that other people are judging us, maybe even when they're not. And it's really hard for those of us who come from trauma backgrounds. It's so difficult because we want to love and we want to be loved, but loving is very scary. If I love you and I let you in, then you know where my wounds are, and at any point you can attack them. And sometimes trauma victims, they actually trust the wrong people, right? So when you think about a trauma survivor who happens upon a narcissist who is really a sheep, is a wolf in sheep's clothing, will love bomb you and tell you how important you are to them and how much value they see in you and how much you're helping them. And you'll feel really, really seen, right? And somebody who is really, really good at love bombing you has the ability to make a trauma victim feel safe. And they can actually do more damage, right? Be so, so wounded when you realize that this person that you trusted really wasn't trustworthy after all. It's important that trauma victims know that they've been traumatized. It's important that, trauma victims know that their CPTSD is a symptom, that their inability to trust people is a symptom, that their feeling like prey is a symptom, and they're all valid. Because if we came from really nurturing homes, we wouldn't feel this way in most of the cases, right? There'd be no reason to feel constricted. We'd be naturally in the flow. We're trying to get to a state of flow where our emotions are not causing us to be reactive or to dissociate. Finding the flow will allow us to be able to move through life with a certain level of confidence about who we are. But I really think it's important that we recognize how our traumatic backgrounds can affect how we show up today. And it can also then hijack our now and actually recreate more of these problems in the future. So in terms of how this fits into the law of attraction, what I believe I become, or what I believe about the world I will experience. So it's so important that, yes, if you come from a trauma background, and yes, if people were cruel to you, you acknowledge that. If you don't trust people easily, that's because people you learned early that people couldn't be trusted. By the age of 1, you're supposed to know that the world is a place that is conducive to survival and is actually a pleasant place. And you know this when your needs are being met consistently. When your needs are not met consistently up until the age of 1, the being that we are feels like their survival is being threatened, and that affects the way our brain is wired. and that can affect the way we show up for the rest of our lives. I think it's important that, even though we've had traumatic backgrounds, we've got to get to a point where we recognize that, yes, this has happened, but we really have to do our homework when it comes to rewiring the brain, when it comes to regulating our emotions, when it comes to recognizing reactive behavior, right? One of the most important things that you can learn to do is to decide not to be reactive to everything. And in the beginning, it's just shutty, like I'm not reacting to that. But as you move along, right, and you journal about the consequences of not reacting and, what were the good things that happened because you didn't react, then your brain starts to recognize the value in not reacting. At first you do it just as a practice, you're just like, almost like jujitsu, like emotional jujitsu. Nope, not going to react. My sister tried to poke me, I'm not reacting. Oh, my mother sent me a nasty text, I'm not reacting. Oh, my ex just said something about me to a coworker, it just got back to me, I'm not texting him back. So it's really just a decision, I'm not reacting, right? And then what you do is you go back and you write in your journal about how you were able to not react and how you feel being able to control this reactivity in you, because what we have to learn to do is override the body's autonomic and automatic responses to stress. At our conscious awareness, our body will respond to a stressor in a number of ways. We will react, fight or flight. We will fight, we will flee, or we will freeze. Some of us fawn. Peter Walker talks about fawning, becoming codependent and fawning. So when we're stressed and someone's angry at us, we fawn, we try to make things better. These are all coping mechanisms trying to help us deal with the stress of abandonment. I think it's really important and worth our time, those of us who come from trauma backgrounds, to recognize how trauma is arresting us today and how trauma is preventing us from experiencing love and abundance and peace in the future. I think it's really important that we recognize the power of non-reactivity. And we recognize the power of shutty, and we recognize the power of journaling about how we feel. We recognize the power of meditation. We recognize the power of being able to sit in a feeling and then touch it and then come out again, right? So, the next time you get triggered or when you want to do some of this work more consciously, perhaps think about a past event that triggered you, right? And think about the way that you felt. And then notice that you can think about it and then pull yourself out of it again, right? So you can think about something and then shift your focus to think about something else. And, another thing that I like to do is I like to shake the energy off. So once I've had a trigger, and I recognize, okay, I've noticed it, I've observed it, detached from the emotions of it, and I've accepted it. My acronym is NOTA. Once I've done all this process, then what I do is I shake the emotions off. And then I sit in contemplation. I think about what just happened. Doing this is helping me regulate the automatic responses to trauma that were downloaded into me when I was an unconscious human being just trying to survive and not psychologically break in a world that was not very conducive to emotional well-being. Being raised by adult children of alcoholics and people who were affected by their parents' narcissism, and being told that our emotions weren't important, and being shamed and humiliated, blah, 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 blah. You guys know my story. But I didn't want it to stop there. I didn't want to dissociate anymore. I didn't want to be reactive anymore. I didn't want to isolate anymore. I had to learn to sit with my feelings. I had to learn to push past my comfort zone. I had to learn to experience being uncomfortable emotionally and to train myself to know that I could survive being emotionally uncomfortable and that I could flow my focus. At any point in time, if things just got too hot, I can say, nope, I'm not doing this right now. I can touch upon this again tomorrow. So I hope that this video has inspired anybody out there who is suffering from trauma to recognize the importance of accepting what has been, but also recognizing the importance of handling our emotions today from a cognitive space so that we don't have to volley between dissociation and reactivity anymore. We have the right, and you absolutely have the right to create flow in your life. So I hope that this short video has allowed you to think about life in a little bit of a different way and to contemplate a direction that maybe you can go in. Learning to feel your feelings and learning to lengthen the fuse so that you don't have to either live in reactivity or live dissociating anymore, and that you can learn to create the flow. Bye, dear ones. Until next time.
Hello, I'm Todd, a recent graduate of Lisa's 12-week breakthrough coaching program. And I'm here today to just share a little bit about my experience, which was absolutely a breakthrough. I'm shocked at the results, and maybe you're a little bit skeptical. At this point, maybe there's some questions floating around. I know that was what was real for me. I had questions. I was not familiar with Lisa's work, and through a recommendation I read A Road Back to Me. And soon after, I chose to just dive in. Let's just give this thing a chance, you know. Let's just go through a few weeks and see how this brews and stirs within me. And by that point, there was no turning back. You know, I've been on this healing path for 15 plus years, so online programs commonly don't resonate with me. I get to a point I feel isolated. I'm out on an island. I've tried so many modalities. I mean, I've had several therapists, ACOA. I lost count of workshops and retreats a while back. Not a proud number, but I was continuing to try, and just having that belief was something that was important to me, that this could happen. Just keep going. Just keep going. I even had a Hay House author for a year that I hired for a mentor. I mean, that I spent a king's ransom on, but there was still so many gaps that I found in these modalities I was trying. You know, I'm from a family that, like many of us, that struggle with these traumas. That my two parents were married 10 times and married and divorced 10 times before I got out of high school. My father was a chronic alcoholic, severe alcoholism. In fact, my father's side of the family, every male in the family and some of the females, chronic, severe alcoholics. I am the one individual within my father's side of the family that isn't. And it was probably a big part of what I was exposed to in childhood. I just couldn't let that happen. But there is a lot, as everyone here is, I'm sure, aware of, that I have had to deal with. You know, that codependency checklist that Lisa has, that I've read in the books. I have had to manage every one of those on that list, and on my healing journey, it's been a part of reality for me. And my childhood brought along a waterfall of toxic behavior for me. There was just a loneliness in me, a lack of an ability to connect with the world. And this program absolutely and undoubtedly has shifted that for me. And it was something I wasn't expecting at all. I wake up, there's this sunrise to my life. There's this shift in the filter of my perspective that's happening. It's amazing how Lisa has structured this in a way, in what I call systems and structures, step by step. I guess what I would say is your hand is held as much as it can be from a online forum. Her and her team are there. There's an active conversation. You have a way to have questions asked. There's so much feedback. The isolation, the challenge is lifted for me. I'm in just gratitude. I can't say enough. 5 stars is short. Would be limiting my expression at this point. So I would say, please dive in, because it's an absolute game changer. From someone that, you know, I was so resentful of the self-help industry after 15 years, I was feeling the same pain. I felt let down. I felt abandoned again. All of the things came back to life for me. And it's just such a relief to know that I can even walk away from here with a toolbox that I can apply in my healing approach moving forward as well. It's just remarkable, and I'm so thankful to Lisa, the team, the community, for what this has brought to my life, and the pathways and portals that have been opened for me, the possibilities, that the rewriting of the chapter of my life, because this absolutely has allowed me the opportunity to plug into my life, to be in full participation of my life. And I can't say anything but thank you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless. And I am so giving high fives and hopes and blessings to everyone on their journey.